Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video I want to share some of the thoughts that I've had over the past few weeks concerning the Mccloskeys. Now, if you're not familiar with the name, those are the couple in St. Louis who brandished a couple of firearms when a crowd of BLM protesters came down their street. Now, to be clear, in case you aren't familiar with the case, and if you are, I'm sorry, because you've probably heard this at least a few dozen times. These people lived in a gated community, which in this case is privately owned property, which was completely surrounded by a brick wall. Now, the protesters had broken down a gate to enter the area, and because these people were on their front porch, they encountered the protesters, and things became heated very quickly. Now, the Mccloskeys had contacted police and their local security force and been told that there would be no support coming in the immediate future. In response to this, they grabbed an AR-15 and a pistol and brandished them out front of their home with the hopes of keeping the crowd from doing the things which the crowd claimed they were going to do to the people and to their home. These people both face felony charges. They've both been terminated from their positions at their place of work, and they face a lot of ire online and a lot of support. Now, in their state, there's very strong stand your ground and castle doctrine rules, which mean that they were fully within their rights to brandish the firearms, and many experts have said they would have been fully in their rights to have opened fire already. And I don't want to get into the debate of the legality of anybody's actions. That will be an interesting case to follow, especially because the prosecutor's assistant already tampered with the evidence by having the firearm reassembled from its disassembled state, which we'll get to in a second. But also because the governor has stated that he will pardon them if they're convicted of any charges in this case. Now, again, this state has extremely lax protective Second Amendment laws, which has a lot of very interesting background, which I'm not going to get into to muddy the water right here, but it's interesting to say the least. About the reassembly of the firearm, this plays into some very interesting conversation that we had early on about this particular case, which I meant to make a video on but never did. This firearm had recently been used in a court case because, lo and behold, these people are civil rights lawyers and have often defended people in cases of civil rights injustices. This firearm had been disassembled and reassembled in a non-active state, meaning that the firing pin had been reversed, the spring had been replaced on the firing pin. So not only was it was intentionally unfunctional. Most firearms won't even have the firing pin going backwards. So whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. And it was done so that it would be admissible as evidence in court and be safe to do so. When the police took possession of the firearm, they were instructed to field strip and reassemble the firearm. And when it was reassembled in a fully firing condition and was submitted to evidence as in a fully firing condition, readily lethal. Now, it may not be tampering with evidence under their laws. I don't know how that's going to play out, but it sure sounds like it. And that in and of itself is telling. This entire case is fraught with political overtones. But what it comes into with our earlier conversation is the fact that many of us, not including myself, I thought it was funny, but many people were actually actively ridiculing these people with their gun handling skills. And I'll say that they definitely were not professional gun handling skills. But I would argue that the fact that she knew fully well that the gun was completely incapable of firing, may have played a factor in how she handled that firearm to increase the intimidation that may have been imparted by how she was handling it. Now, that may be giving her too much credit, but I think that if we made fun of her for having her finger on the trigger of what was as deadly as a toy gun at that moment, if not only a little bit heavier, we should maybe rethink that. My point that I was going to make in that earlier video was that these people should not be ridiculed by people who are pro Second Amendment, who believe in the right to defend their homes with guns. As laughable as the situation looked at the time, or may still to some of you, these are people who likely, before this day, never once said in a YouTube comment section that I will be defending myself with guns or my home with guns. If these people ever come down my street, I'll be standing out front with a gun. I know some of you have said it. I've said it. I share that sentiment. But these are not the same people who say it full of gung-ho. These are people who likely would have argued with people who said that they would go out on their front lawn with guns. Now, you may say that that's silly because these people have in fact done exactly that. But my point here is that rather than ridiculing these people, I think that we need to realize that they only reinforce what we said. This tells us a lot more than if it was one of our fellow prepper, veteran, gun nut YouTubers, because we would know that that person had a higher proclivity to doing that thing than somebody who never once claimed that they planned on doing that in such a situation. This tells us that the regular people are doing this exact thing. I think that we can learn a lot from this situation, whether it's just the fact that some apparently regular people found themselves in a situation where they felt the need to defend their home and their lives with firearms on their front lawn, or the tampering of evidence in a highly politically charged environment. There's a lot to learn from this, and I'm not going to tell you what that is, but I'd love to hear what you guys think you've gotten out of this situation, because this is just one in many, many situations that have yet to play out, and all of which are adding to the precedent that we all have in our minds. These are all adding to the conversation and stirring the pot, if you will. And this one in and of itself is quite interesting, as they all are. Anyways, love to hear your thoughts. Hope you're all doing well, and everybody stay safe out there.